So I just wanted to pop on and have a quick and brief discussion regarding dealing with dementia. If you are a caregiver and if you're currently or if you've ever had to deal with someone that has dementia, one of the things that will occur and that you will have to deal with is the fact that sometimes you can walk through the door, but you're not always going to be quite sure of what you will be walking into per se. It could be a good day, it could be a bad day for the client. But notice I say for the client. As it concerns you as a caregiver, you always want to try to make it a good day for yourself. Try not to take things personally. And keeping in mind, a lot of times dementia patients are living in their past, and you never know, their past could include a lot of different things that you may experience with the client with dementia. So I just wanted to share some tips and tricks on what you possibly would want to keep in mind or try or do if you are in a situation with a senior that may have some aggressive behavior with their dementia. I would say one of the most important things is to make sure that you're setting realistic goals and expectations. You can have a month's worth of good days, but don't always assume that that is the way things are always going to be, because it may not be the case. With a senior with dementia, they can have a month worth of good days, but then things can turn around rather quickly depending on how the dementia is progressing for them. So you definitely want to set some realistic expectations, and always try to use questions, if at all possible, to try to find out where the aggressiveness could be coming from. So you can try open-ended questions if they are able to, speak and relay the message to you. And sometimes even when they're speaking to you, it may be an issue where you would have to translate what they're actually trying to say, because they can be hot but may not remember the word for hot, so they could say ice cream, and so you just got to try trial and error to try to figure out what's going on. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but it is definitely a necessary step. And along with trying to find what is causing the situation, keep in mind that because they're living in the past, it could be an issue with if the house is too dark. Maybe they, in their past or in their childhood, they had a situation that scared them, and so now dark places are an issue for them. Maybe it's always been an issue for them, but the fact that they can't relay or think or rationalize what to do to correct the darkness, it may be your job to figure that out. So if they're angry, upset, or agitated, again, just try to find a solution to the problem, instead of just chalking it up to a grumpy senior or a mean elderly person, because that may not be the case at all. Another thing that would cause a senior to act irrationally would definitely be pain or discomfort. Again, depending on the stage they are with dementia, they may not be able to tell you that they are in pain, or if they can tell you they're in pain, they can't really verse where or how or what happened. If it's a senior who may not be getting 24 hours around the clock care, something could have happened during the night. We have heard of, hopefully we've all heard of and are aware of sundowners. And with sundowners, they can be up all night wandering around and doing things and can hurt themselves and not be able to tell you when you get there in the morning. So you definitely want to assess the environment, right? Does it look like they were up all night? Do they seem overly tired or worn out? Does it seem, or is their bed in a very, very, is it really messy? Maybe they had a lot of restless sleep. One thing that I always try to look for, and I also train staff to look for, is to look for cues, right? So I've mentioned the bed. You want to look around the house to see if the house is disheveled or if it is in proper order. Check your kitchen, see if they've been doing a lot of late night eating. That could also be an indicator of sundowners or not sleeping at night. You also want to make sure, check for books. If your senior or the person that you're giving care to was an avid reader or researcher or educational type, look and see if there's an excessive amount of books laying around, because it may be that the bed looks normal. There wasn't a lot of eating or late night eating, so the kitchen may look normal. The house may look normal, but there'll be an excessive amount of books sitting at the desk or the table or something like that. So those are things that you want to keep in mind as well. Now, if this does occur and you feel that sundowners is becoming a problem, this is a great opportunity to be that bridge and try to engage the family. Now, of course, you can't reach the entire family, but what you can do is speak to that, what I call the primary family caregiver, right? So this is the person who may be the power of attorney, or something like that. The person that probably hired you or interviewed you to help care for their elderly parent or maybe a disabled sibling or spouse. So you definitely want to reach out to them. If they are not well versed in sundowners, that would also be a great opportunity for you to give them a little education. Come prepared with resources. There's websites that they can visit to get information. There's pamphlets, there's booklets. Always come prepared to share and educate the family members, that primary family caregiver, and I guarantee you they will appreciate it a whole lot more than you may think currently. Also, that would be an open avenue to maybe send a flag to that family member that maybe it's time for us to speak to the doctor, see if there's any help that can be given to provide mom, dad, sister, brother, spouse, whoever, friend, aunt, uncle, whoever, just more sleep and rest at night. And it will help you as well feel more secure knowing that they're sleeping instead of out and about. I can give you a good example from personal experience. I had early one morning, I would say maybe it was 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, I had an employee, a staff member, give me a call, and they seemed a little panicked. I said, "What's wrong? What's going on?" Come to find out, she did get to work extremely early that morning, and she wasn't sure why she woke up early and wanted to leave out early for work, but I'm so glad she did. And again, for those of you that are looking for a caregiver for your family member, these are the people that you want to look for, people who are genuinely care and they are concerned about your loved one. But to make a long story short, she gets there. The young man, I'll say, that she was going to provide care for that day, she came out and found him going through a lot of cars in the parking lot with a set of erroneous keys that he had found around the house. When she asked him what was going on, his response was, "Well, I'm late for work and this key will not work in the car and I need to go to work." Now, this young man was well in his 90s, so he didn't have a job to go to, but his dementia had really progressed. And so we handled that situation. And at first, he was agitated as well because in his mind, he was going to work and we were stopping him from going to work, or the staff member was stopping him from going to work. One of the tips I gave her to do was first, let's get him to calm down. So we, of course, use soft tones of voice, very caring and compassionate type of responses. And another thing that we do is distraction as well. So right now he's thinking that he is probably 30, 40 years his younger than he actually is. Actually 90, 87, 60, 50, 40, 30, no, he's probably about 50 years in the past from the conversation, from what I've heard of the conversation. But once we got him to calm down and stop being so agitated, one of the distractions said, okay, I understand that you're late for work, but the key is not working. How about if we go into the house and see if we can find the right key? And then, of course, once we get them in the house, then we have a different conversation. And it's never an accusatory or to try to belittle them or make them feel small. It's always a conversation to try to think through the process. Okay, this key isn't working, so we know it's not this key. Where do you work? Well, let's look and see. And then we can pop open some photo albums, and it's about making as much as possible. Now, this may not work for every case and it may not work for everyone, but these are certainly tips that I've used that have been successful for me. And of course, this is just one situation. There are multiple tips, but of course, they, I can't just open up my head and give them all to you, but I certainly will share as I can as the videos progress and as we go and grow as a company. So again, once we get them inside, it's a different conversation. It's about, making them feel loved and cared for and helping them understand that we're not here to hurt you. We're not here to harm you. Of course, we're here to keep you safe. And also, another thing is, because we had that relationship with the primary family caregiver, it was so simple just to make a phone call and let him talk to his daughter. And that seemed to help a lot because sometimes when they're agitated, they don't want to hear from you. Doesn't mean that they don't like you or care for you or appreciate all that you do. It just means that, well, maybe you need to bring a family member in to help bring more clarity to the situation. And you certainly always want to, even if you feel as a caregiver that their feelings are not valid, those are things you may know, and it may even be how you feel, but you cannot, absolutely cannot make the person that you're providing care for feel that you don't value their feelings or their emotions. You definitely want to set up the situation in a way to where they know that you are listening, that you hear, that you understand, and that you are a safe place for them no matter what their emotional situation may be at the time. And always, always, always try to just keep a calm environment. And what do I mean by that? Well, that can be a lot of different things, right? You've got to figure out what's going to work best for you and what's going to work best for your client. An example that I can give that I totally support and suggest, if at all possible, for caretakers to utilize is aromatherapy. Like, sometimes emotions and feelings can be triggered by mere smells, right? So aromatherapy. What's calming to that client? And you might have to try a few different things before you really find that one thing that works. Lavender may work for some, but not for another. You know, for one person it might be pine. You know, the smell of pine, or the smell of an apple pie, or you know, you've got to, or smell of vanilla. You've got to figure out what's going to work and what calms and brings a sense of peace and serenity to your client. And then once you figure that out, then you can use that as a resource. Aromatherapy, for some clients, it's just read to them. Read to them. Read to them. For some clients, believe it or not, especially if that client was a teacher, for example, had a client who was, say, an elementary school teacher. One thing I know with this particular client, because she was a teacher for so many years, all of her adult life, well, most of it, she loved to teach. So what brought her happiness and joy and peace was to let her teach me stuff. And to let staff, for example, she loves to teach a staff member, and they do it every weekend. So you may be taught the same things every week, but knitting, right? She loves to teach. As long as she's teaching something, you can ask her a question and be like, well, how does this work? You can know the answer, but just for them to be able to share and give and teach, that brings her joy and happiness. And then we have a client who is a retired college professor. He's also a teacher, right? But he likes to teach on a different level. So with him, he'd prefer to have like an analytical kind of conversation, an intellectual conversation, you know, so you can bring a Sudoku puzzle and put it out there, and even if you know how to do it, just to say, I seem to be stuck. Do you see an answer for this problem? And you know, that can start a conversation that can go on and on about different things and can take different routes and journeys, and you know, and it really is a learning process as well. It can be a learning process for you. So it's a lot of things that can play in. What are they doing in their past? What have they done in their past? And bringing it into the now situation to bring peace and joy and happiness. So that's another thing to bring a calm and a peace and a serenity into an aggressive or a little bit of a chaotic situation. Yeah, so those are a lot of the tips that I've used, and I have showed staff and shared with staff and trained staff into using as well. There are just so many things that I've learned along the way and along this journey that I will be sharing over the course of these videos. And I just thank you guys for spending about 15 minutes of your time with me, or a little more. And just continue to stay encouraged, caregivers, and for you family members out there that are looking for good care, again, you as well, continue to stay encouraged. The journey is not always easy, but it's a journey that we can take together. And just keep yourself uplifted, smile on your face. You're going to make it through this. Even on your worst day, your worst day is still someone else's best day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.